And I'm Clinton.
And welcome to Blacklandic. We are a podcast, website, and media channel with the goal of bringing Black, Canadian, East Coast voices to the world.
You can express anything you want. And you can also expect to hear from us weekly with guests or simply just us exploring different topics from all over Atlantic Canada and sometimes the world.
Be sure to visit our website at blacklandic.ca.
And search for Blacklandic on all your socials.
That's why we have to type it out every time because we don't know what we're saying.
I'm going to memorize it.
You're going to memorize it?
We'll see what happens
in 2 weeks' time if we'll come back to that.
Yep.
How are you today?
I'm good. It's been a week of sunshine after so much rain, which means to me, I get to be outside on my property. I've been getting garden ready. We're working to rebuild our chicken fence, and I've just been soaking in the sun. I just love soaking in the sun. So
yeah,
pretty good week for me.
As someone who's been on the property, there's a lot to explore and do, and I would be outside all the time too if I had your house.
Did I walk you to the chair? Like, did you even get to see
a
part of it?
Chair from afar.
Oh,
you walked me to the chair in the morning.
Okay. Yeah. Amazing. All right.
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm good. I've had a mental health week. If people follow my Instagram, they know that this week has been all saucy, but I'm fine. And this will air a day after I will have made my return to the fashion runway. I am modeling for Ellie Sandbacka, and I'm very excited. The whole line is called Bite Me. It's anti patriarchy vibes. I think I'm going to look like Tinkerbell. There's 2 different outfits though, so we'll see which one I'm put in, but I'm really excited. Should be wearing combat boots so I won't fall off the stage, but I am nervous and I don't know how to pose at the end yet, but I have to figure it out by tomorrow at this time.
So definitely follow Cropberry on Instagram as soon as you can to check out her combat boot stuff and fashion show return for next week. Also follow Brown Farm Boy, because in line with me being outside a lot more, it's going to be a lot more content from the farm, the animals, and what life on the country is like for a person of color.
Brown Farm Boy's got a peacock.
Also, let's say this. Oh, I got a peacock. Wait, did that sound bad?
I can't stop laughing now.
So we usually say this at the end of the episode, not before. We're trying to expand our team, have contributors on the channel that can actually get paid. We're fully grassroots right now. We came to this organization with absolutely nothing in pocket to put towards it. We're working on that. But yeah, we do have a GoFundMe. Just search Blacklandic on GoFundMe if you're looking to support and contribute, because these dollars will be put to good use.
And thank you to the people who have donated so far.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Yeah. So what are we talking about today?
We're going to talk about the latest Dave Chappelle incident.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to talk about something close to you, I suppose, and your family. Some news about 3Plus, an organization that I know a little bit about. I want to say a gentleman, but a scumbag named Daniel Bard, and the news around that. And then we're going to end with a very cool new business that has opened in Nova Scotia, about some Black women workout vibes, which I'm very, very into.
Absolutely. Yeah. So an issue close to me and my family, but something I think that's important to all New Brunswickers, especially the people of the Greater Moncton area. So let's get into it. Do you want to start with Mr. Chappelle?
We can start with Mr. Chappelle. I'll admit that I saw it in a flurry of social media things. I haven't fully watched it. I saw that apparently he went live to discuss it, but from what I understand, he was performing on stage with other people, and a 23-year-old man in the crowd, armed with a gun, charged the stage, charged Dave Chappelle, tried to take him down. And of course, that man was then arrested and Dave Chappelle was fine and the show went on.
Yeah, exactly. So the gentleman's name was Isaiah Lee. We can, to those who are watching on YouTube, and by the way, you should be watching our content on YouTube unless you're a pure audio person, because it's getting better and better every week. Yep. But yeah, we're going to play the video here quickly, or at least part of it, about what happened. And, that must be what this image is here. This is the first time I heard that he had a gun. Is that what you heard? I just started seeing a bunch of stuff yesterday on Instagram, a flurry of this gentleman. Now, he did get really beat up, but he also, okay, well, we'll save our opinions till afterwards. We'll have a quick discussion, but this is what happened.
Ladies and gentlemen, make some noise for hip hop history. going to kill that.
Did you hear that?
Wait, I gotta see this.
Okay, did you hear that? Can you hear me?
I heard him say, "I'm gonna kill that," I presume, N-word. And then yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, so
Can I
yeah,
just-
pretty.
Can
Go
I
ahead.
just say, the person who tried to take him down so hard that he fell instead. Oh, it's not funny, but it's funny.
It's wild, yeah. So later on in the in that little clip here, I
Mhm.
didn't play the whole thing. Dave Chappelle is like making jokes about he's back there getting pounded, and then the camera does cut to the background where you can see all the security guards around him. There's not a lot of movement, so we don't know what's happening. And then at the end, Dave is like, "I'm going to go over there and talk to him," or something like that. So pretty wild. And then we're not going to show the images here, but then there is a image of that gentleman on Instagram looking quite beaten up. His head was
Yeah.
really swollen. His arm was like bent
Yeah.
completely in the wrong direction. So Dave Chappelle's been in the news a lot lately. What is your commentary on what happened? Why do you think it happened? And
I'd like to first make the comment that Dave wasn't doing the show alone. He had guests, and Chris Rock was a guest. And Chris Rock said it was that Will Smith as a joke. That's the first thing that I saw, was that Chris Rock was like, "Oh shit, I didn't know Will Smith was here," as a response to the tackle. And I think that that's hilarious. My guess is that this is some person who is like either trying to take advantage of like the Dave Chappelle being in the news and trying to also have like some kind of 15 minutes of fame. Like, I don't necessarily feel that this person is trying to kill or wound Dave Chappelle in the name of the trans or queer community or their rights. I don't believe that any person in that community would ask for violence to be done to Dave Chappelle as a response to all of the controversy that's been going on. I think, as you know, queer people have suffered so much violence, they know that violence is not the answer. But I'm guessing that, like, my guess is that, yeah, he's doing this because it would like get him 15 minutes of fame or something, or something about Dave Chappelle's stardom. I don't think that it's like a queer person or someone trying to defend the queer community.
yeah, I mean, that was my first assumption. I thought that's exactly what it was about at first. Due to the fact that the gentleman was wearing black nail polish, which is not a good enough reason, but I saw the images and I just assumed because of all the stuff happening in the media. Now, Dave Chappelle said he talked to the man and to ask why he did that. And Isaiah Lee said he did this because it was all about getting attention for his grandmother, who he said had been forced out of her neighborhood because of gentrification. Yeah, now that look on your face, that doesn't make any sense to me.
So there was this article not that long ago, and maybe we can look it up and either put it in the YouTube description or share it or something. But Dave Chappelle owns a lot of property in his own neighborhood, and they were trying to preserve an area, or they were trying to build low-income housing near Dave Chappelle's property. And he said he would move out and take all of his stakes in his own like city if they try to encroach on his property. And I'm wondering if this man is from where Dave Chappelle is from, and if it's that, or if this is a very weird thing that makes no sense because what black man is participating in gentrification. But Dave Chappelle he has like really, really helped his community in a lot of great ways.
Hold on. So are you saying that Dave Chappelle was being very helpful in people in lower income housing, or that he was against that and he wanted the gentrification?
So he was against the low income housing being put near his property and probably participating in gentrification of the community by helping specific businesses. So I know he was a stakeholder of several businesses, and basically at this like town hall meeting, he pulled up and said, "I will remove my stakes in those companies if you build this low income housing near my property. I am the person who has made this town, city flourish, and I will take away what I have given you.
Wow. Where's he from? Is he from Chicago? No, definitely not, right?
No, it's somewhere where he was able to have that documentary filmed on like land, like a plant, not a plantation, but like a farm.
Okay. Yeah, I remember in one of his shows, he said he didn't grow up in like any kind of project or lower income housing or community. He grew up in a nice neighborhood. But anyways, wow. So I guess the guy was successful in that and getting attention brought to the matter to some regard. I didn't know any of that. My simple opinion is like, I hope he's not surprised that he got beat the F up, because I mean, especially after the Chris Rock, Will Smith thing. Chris Rock did a show after Will Smith slapped him, and some guy was just heckling Chris Rock, and that guy got kicked out and arrested in the end. And I mean, if you think you're gonna hop on a stage and tackle a multi-millionaire after a comedian got slapped by Will Smith last month and get away with it, no, those personal security guards, they're beasts. And he physically attacked Dave Chappelle. And so like, my whole thing was, I don't know what your point was or what you were trying to accomplish, but you had to have like, I'm not surprised at all that the guy got his butt kicked. I hope he's okay, but I think that was a pretty stupid move. Dave Chappelle's a really interesting character. It's really funny. He does a lot of controversial things. Is he a Republican? That's one question that I don't know the answer to.
I don't know the answer to that.
Definitely, like if he went out and publicly was like, I don't want no lower income housing around my neighborhood. But is that gentrification? It was vacant land. They were gonna put up lower income housing where there previously was something else.
So he put an end to affordable housing that was being built in Yellow Springs, Ohio, where he is currently living. I'm skimming the article. I think they were rezoning land near him.
Oh, well.
He reiterated that he was serious about withdrawing the millions of dollars he had invested in the town. I cannot believe you would make me audition for you, he told city leaders. You look like clowns. I am not bluffing. I will take it all off the table if they rezoned that property near him. For almost 2 decades, Chappelle has lived on the outskirts of this quaint college town east of Dayton. He talks a lot about how much he loves Yellow Springs, where he attended middle school and spent childhood summers with his father, the dean of students at Antioch College.
Wild. Wow. I don't know. He's really funny. He's a unique person. I don't know how I feel about some of his opinions.
Was the show last night in Ohio?
No, but actually the show that Chris Rock was at with Puff Daddy, he did a secret show a couple days later with like 70 guests, and that's where Chris Rock was there. It was like a more intimate environment. It wasn't during that show that Chris Rock made the comment. Chris Rock made a comment about being a joke about being smacked by the wackest N-word rapper that had ever graced the stage or something. So Chris Rock's starting to take shots back. But anyways, so that's what happened with Dave Chappelle. Shall we move on?
We can move on. The only thing I was going to say, though, is that if the show wasn't in Ohio, then I doubt it feels more of a reach that this man was talking about that specific thing in regards to gentrification. So True. He's just out of pocket if that show was not in Ohio, or else how is this man traveling to try to kill Dave Chappelle about gentrification going on in Yellow Springs, Ohio?
Good point.
Anything's possible.
It was probably in Ohio. All right. Next up, we're going to talk about a situation here in the city, something that has been in the past few days on CBC, Acadie Nouvelle, and a number of other local websites as well. A gentleman named Daniel Bard, a previous employee of the 3Plus Corporation in the Greater Moncton area, who was responsible for the Greater 3Plus is responsible for the economic development of the Greater Moncton area. He was arrested 2 years after he fled the country amidst fraud and allegations of fraud among over 60 people, including, full disclosure, myself and my partner, who is also my wife. And now he's back. He came back and he got arrested. So he has a court date for July. And to help talk about this, we're actually going to bring on my partner, Sally, to discuss the situation in a bit more detail. And we're going to bring up the news article as well. And here she is. Welcome to the podcast, Sally.
Hey, Sally.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
We all know each other. And of course, as I was saying, this article that has been in the news and is actually all over the news. This is from May 4th, 2022. Arrest made in long-running Moncton fraud investigation, in which the RCMP arrested in Edmundston Daniel Bard, and he's set to appear in court in July. So the arrest was made of Daniel Bard. He was a former 3Plus corporation employee between 2016 and 2018. That's how we came in contact with them. It's been reported that he has frauded, I believe, close to 60 businesses. The investigation was launched after we went to the RCMP. He wasn't arrested then. He fled the country. Charges have not been formally laid to him for this. Daniel was hired by 3Plus without being properly vetted. There was a report that came out that, in my personal opinion, was a lot of bull. He also scammed someone else while working with 3Plus out of $130,000 in 2017. Moncton lawyer Christian Michaud is representing the other victims. And yeah, so Sally, I gave a little bit of a summary there, but what happened here and what's going on?
Well, first I want to do some corrections to the article because there are some mistakes in the article. First and foremost, our contribution wasn't 25,000 Canadian dollars. It was 25,000 American dollars, which was the equivalent of 32,000 Canadian at the time. So I just want to clarify that one thing that they got wrong in the news article. The second thing that all of these news articles are failing to actually talk about is the quote unquote independent internal investigation and how non-independent this internal investigation was. So basically the way this was that 3Plus hired a lawyer. This lawyer hired his buddy who works in Halifax. Buddy who works in Halifax, is his buddy because referred to the lawyer as Bobby, not by his name, but as Bobby, my buddy Bobby, and also referred to Frederick Gionnet as Fred and Donald Bastarache as Donnie. So that there is definitely familiarity, other than the fact that in my interview, I actually asked him if he knew them. And he discussed that familiarity that he had with those individuals. So let's bring into question right now that, whether or not that investigation was actually independent. No, it wasn't. It was essentially a buddy of 3Plus who did this internal investigation and this internal report. And the truth is, even that report was somewhat damning. The report itself, I don't believe was ever made public. They say they made it public, but I have yet to find a copy of it publicly online. So maybe we can make it public, who knows? But
it's actually right here.
You found
Just
it?
So you know, yeah. So 3plus.ca independent investigation report. Here's a summary of the report, and right here is where you can download the PDF to anyone who's. Oh, I'm not showing my screen, am I?
I'm just gonna say, I'm not showing your screen anymore.
That's okay. It's it's right here. 3plus.ca independent report, summary of it. So Joel Michaud was the lawyer from Fredericton, not Halifax.
He's not from Fredericton. He's from Moncton.
Oh, okay.
And he works out of Halifax.
He works out of Halifax. Yeah, he constantly referred to the 3Plus lawyer Robert by Bobby, and some other things as well. It also doesn't mention that, we have emails and proof of employees from 3Plus working with Daniel Bard in his office, at least 2 different 3Plus employees at the time on our project, even after Daniel Bard left 3Plus. So the idea that 3Plus was not aware of what was going on is, again, is complete horse. Okay,
bananas.
Go on.
So
Yeah.
Can I ask, because as far as the Black Atlantic podcast is concerned, we've never discussed what was the fraud that you experienced, and from my understanding, how does it specifically target people of color, and why is it a bigger problem than just it's not just fraud, it's also a racialized issue, right?
Absolutely. So when we came public with our story and our experience with 3Plus, we were then approached by numerous individuals of color. Mm-hmm. Primarily Black individuals, but numerous individuals of colors nonetheless, who came and said, well, I went to 3Plus for services and they actually asked me for money to help me. And we know for a fact that they've helped many non-people of color or white people get services, loans, grants, support at no upfront cost whatsoever. And it's the fact that nobody wanted to take our project, even though there was another salon at the time that went in that was owned by a white individual, or the project was a concept by a white individual. It wasn't even an actual like established business, whereas we were an established business with a track record. We went in, we shouldn't have been paired with this individual because he had nothing to do with our department. We saw the email back and forth between the multiple individuals that should have taken our report. And then the term at the end was, we will leave this one to Daniel, as if like, oh God, nobody wants to take this one. So let's leave it to Dan. And on top of that, Daniel was presented to many other people as a separate investor that could support and help financiers within 3Plus, not just to people of color, but I've heard of many and met many white business owners as well, who were once refused support or unable to obtain support by 3Plus, were referred to Daniel as a independent in-house support system. And then let's add the fact that this organization that takes no accountability for frauding our local business owners who are already vulnerable, because when you go to 3Plus, you're not necessarily an established business person. You're not necessarily well versed in, general operations and financing and all that jazz. That's what they are there to do. Shortly at the same time as our story came out 2 or 3 years ago now, it came out that 3Plus got a grant from, I believe, the federal government and the provincial government, putting them in charge of all immigrant investors and all immigrants seeking employment. Now, it's one thing to attack vulnerable people who know our system. It's a whole other thing when you attack people who are so vulnerable, they don't even know anything about our system. So that is racialized. To me, that is racial assault. It's systematic racism. The fact that, to help people of color, they ask for money from people of color, but white people, it's a lot easy breezy, a lot more easy breezy. So there were always rumors kind of floating around about racial discrimination, but also of certain other misconducts within the organization. So basically, now we're taking this organization that has a habit of throwing everything under the rug, and we're saying that they're the primary resource to people of color who don't have a point of reference, for them essentially to get assaulted financially the way we did. And this is financial abuse, financial assault, but it is also racialized, systematic discrimination. I want to also add that to get the attention on a situation that happens to people of color, especially pre-George Floyd, because this was pre-George Floyd, that in itself is a racialized systematic problem. And when Clinton and I came forward with all of these issues and allegations, we were seen as angry brown folk. We weren't seen as legitimate business owners with complaints, and we were avoided like the plague by municipal leaders, including mayors, by provincial leaders, by federal leaders. So it's just exploitation to the max, and it shows the bigger picture, because this, I believe, if we were a well-versed, reputable white business, the way the media would have approached this, and the way the public would have approached this, or the responsible, municipal, provincial, and federal people responsible would approach this differently. And I want to clarify that CBC that took on our story did an amazing job. But the amount it took of screaming, even to get the attention of the RCMP, even to get the attention of RCMP, whether it's because it's financial fraud and nobody really wants to talk about it, or whether it's because it's systematic and, we're just considered irresponsible with our money, which is a generalized stigma of people of color. Whatever it was a lot of difficulty and a lot of challenge and a lot of hurdles for quote unquote a civilized, developed justice system. And I shouldn't even call it just a legal system, a civilized legal system. I think that the attention and the way that certain organizations were put to light really showed the difference between how we treat people of color who get financially frauded versus how we treat non-people of color who get financially frauded. But I really, again, I want to commend and appreciate the work that CBC really put into this, especially the initial journalist who was the Francophone CBC Radio Canada.
Thank you. So I guess in summary, like another thing that you and what I think I'm saying is that so Daniel Bard is the major villain here. He's the major criminal, but he worked within the walls of 3Plus and was hired with a criminal record without being properly vetted. Now, for an organization like 3Plus to put out an independent report after a fraud like this took place within their walls and take zero accountability, zero responsibility, and not really show any signs of real remorse or change, and then also receive taxpayer money and to become the middle people involved as some immigrants' first point of contact in getting set up with their business here in New Brunswick is very dangerous. So for an organization that knows that fraud took place for one of their employees, but then still also gets put in front of immigrants who don't know the system, like you're saying, it's very dangerous. And while there are many great economic agencies in Moncton or New Brunswick that can perform this job, it should not be the job of 3Plus. Yes, the entire staff has changed, but there's still a board. And I think they've shown over the years that they will not take accountability if someone else does end up being frauded, if an immigrant comes here and gets screwed, especially ones from West Africa. And something like that. That's the real danger that we're looking at here. I was at a Black entrepreneurs event just 2 weeks ago, in which only Black entrepreneurs were invited. But for some reason, someone from 3Plus showed up, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that he was in charge of like entrepreneurial services or startups, and it seemed like he was there scouting to try to recruit new people to their cause. But at the same time, I know the organizers were getting frustrated with the representative from 3Plus, asking him to stop interrupting. He was distracting the table he was at and actually not letting the purpose of the event take place. So in some ways, undermining the purpose of the Black Entrepreneurs event altogether. Do you have any other questions for Hillary, Sally?
I'd like to add one more thing
Of
too.
course.
The tradition of victim shaming.
Yes.
It's usually used to, there's no white man that gets victim shamed. Let's be very serious. No straight cis man white victim ever gets victim shamed. It's always minority groups and females, and people who are easily targets of being objectified and being exploited. And so that report, the way it victim shamed Clinton and I and put the responsibility on us, like I'm going to go to extreme cases where, a Black man gets shot, assaulted by police, da, 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 da. They'll say, well, he shouldn't have been using drugs. Well, he was at the wrong place at the wrong time. He should have known not to be there. Da, da, da. Well, these documents actually said that Clinton and I should have known better. And should have been more suspicious and should have. And it put the responsibility and the onus on us. And that in itself, again, is a systematic racist approach to dealing with a problem. When you go ahead and instead of owning the responsibility, taking accountability of what you had, going in and victim blaming, literally the victims, because had Clinton and I not been to 3Plus, we would have never met Daniel Bard, not in a million years. And the fact that we were, it was said in this report that we should have known better. We should have looked into it. We should have done our homework when they didn't do theirs, is basically justifying the act of abuse that we had to endure. And that, again, to me, I mean, if the shoe fits, those rumors fit. And so I just wanted to add that in there too with what Clinton was saying, is that along with the victim shaming, it just shows how incredibly unreliable this organization is to be left in charge of a susceptible population.
Yeah, let me point out that while the article did say that we should have done more research, the article literally said that we should have not trusted 3+. The independent report that cleared them also kind of implied that we shouldn't have trusted the representatives of 3+. But let me point out that we did do our research. We did do our due diligence. We researched this man for months. We scoured every corner of the internet as far back as we could. We checked his Facebook going 6 years back. We took the document, the contract that we signed to a lawyer, and we did work with and speak with other members of 3+ during this process. So we were young entrepreneurs. We had previously been voted runners up for Young Entrepreneurs of the Year in the greater Moncton area. And we went to an organization that we'd heard of for years that is tasked with the development of the economic well-being of businesses in greater Moncton area. And we put our faith in a government taxpayer-funded organization. We wouldn't have invested with this gentleman had he not been a representative of this company. So, Daniel Bard has the most responsibility for it. We have to acknowledge that there is a small amount of people in business make bad investments and bad choices all the time. However, there has to be an onus on the organization that put vulnerable young entrepreneurs in front of criminals with criminal records. And we now know that there are records of him being a criminal online before being hired at 3+. We just didn't know how to access those records at the time. And you'd think an organization like 3+ would have done their due diligence before putting their representatives in front of young, vulnerable entrepreneurs who have come to them for help in entrepreneurship. So yeah, like we did our research, we did our due diligence, and yeah, there was no accountability on, I'm taking accountability for that. There was no accountability on the taxpayer funded organization that put him in front of us. Zero, absolutely nothing. So I have a huge fear of, yes, they've changed a number of the staff members, but the organization inherently, I believe, is rotten. And I don't believe that they should be the ones tasked with the money and the funding and the resources to take vulnerable immigrants who come to this country looking for a better life and be responsible for their well-being here in Canada. That's my major point, and that's one of the biggest concerns and fears. I don't expect to ever get the investment back. I'm glad Daniel Bard was arrested. I hope he goes to jail, although I have serious hesitations about the justice system here in New Brunswick. But the takeaway from this, in my opinion, and you can give your own, and Hillary, if you have any questions, I know you haven't spoken in a while, is that to me, this is an organization that should not be trusted with vulnerable entrepreneurs of color.
The only thing that I would add is it just reminds me of other situations and other people who like to take advantage of people of color. And I feel your frustration as someone who has experienced that firsthand. And I completely agree that clearly these types of people should not be allowed to be implicated with vulnerable people who come into business situations or come to a country and they don't know better. They don't know the system. They don't know what they're doing. I think like everything that you've described is two people who knew as much about the system as they could, did their due diligence, did their research, still got screwed over. And so being an example of people who did the homework, imagining all of the people who are not doing the homework, who are still being exposed to this company is very sad and very problematic, because it's going to continue to happen, whether it's in a different same bullshit, different font. Like people are still getting abused and taken advantage of. My guess, don't come for me, but like I wouldn't trust an organization that's willing to sweep all of this under the rug to avoid accountability. I think the only way to move forward through racism, exploitation, injustice, if it's like your namesake in your company, is accountability, and then finding a way to give back reparations, not saying this is someone else's fault, problem, or it didn't really happen. That's how you continue to propagate more problems and lies and hurt more people, specifically people of color that you seem to not care about.
And I'd like to add on to this that this is a publicly funded company, which means everybody listening to this, your tax dollars go to this company one way or another, a small portion of them, but it still goes there. And so what's even more concerning, the fact that this organization won't take accountability, is that when Clinton and I went and climbed the ranks, I guess, to see where we can get a proper investigation, because again, taxpayers' money is invested into this, there was complete resistance every step of the way. Ombudsman couldn't get involved, didn't want to get involved. The mayor, I literally had to run her down at a church. The mayor of Moncton, she ignored us for months. The many mayors ignored us for months. Sorry. The federal, the federal MLA didn't want to deal with it because again, there was personal involvement in the situation, and rather than recusing herself and handing it over to someone who could go and do something about it, she put the onus on Clinton and myself to provide evidence that was already presented in a report by a quote independent investigation that was made by even said organization. So it's concerning, because not only is it one organization that is harming, it's an entire systematic rupture, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, we're certainly going to be covering this more as the court date is taking place in July, and we'll try to come back with more comprehensive coverage of what's going on. But yeah, this is in the news, and we like to talk about the news. Again, full disclosure, this is a situation that involves me, but it's really relevant to the podcast because of what I've seen over the years, the many successes I've seen non-POCs have with this organization, and the many failures you can call this hearsay, the people I've talked to directly who are people of color who have complained about really horrible results with this organization.
And like Sally just said, failures on multiple levels of the government, which is indicative of why we need a commissioner for systemic racism who cannot even take complaints about issues like this. Good old New Brunswick.
Merry Christmas.
Happy Hanukkah.
Thank you so much for coming on the show.
It was a pleasure.
Sally.
Thank you for having me.
Come back soon.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. So, bit of a weird or awkward situation feeling for me. I've never commented on a story or news article that personally involved myself. But again, I just want to reiterate that my main concern with the story is New Brunswick has focused millions and millions and millions of dollars in bringing newcomers to this province. And as we all know, there already have been stories about people coming to Canada being abused, not liking New Brunswick, not wanting to stay, not getting the opportunities, deserve them. And so they come here for a few years, then go to Toronto or Montreal. I really appreciate seeing diversity in New Brunswick, and I want that to continue to increase. And then there's just this added element of now people looking to get into business. Am I frozen? Yeah, people looking to get into business are also now running the risk of having really bad experiences here, and I don't want that. I don't want that for the people who want to come here and become Canadians or New Brunswickers.
Yeah, we don't want anyone to get exploited. We'd like people to stop doing that to people of color or anybody. So we appear to have a frozen Clinton, but I can still hear you. Can you still hear me?
I hope I'm still here. Yeah.
You are still here. So we're going to quickly run through the last topic, and I'm going to share my screen if I'm capable. So the latest and our last topic is A Space for Me. North Preston Duo starts a fitness group specifically for Black women, which I am pretty excited about seeing something like this. Shania Sparks and Lakara Winder of North Preston started a Black girl fitness group last month as a way to promote health and fitness in their community while also providing a safe space for Black women to work out. They started it in March to fill a gap that they noticed in the Halifax area. They had messages for days telling the two owners, how much everyone loved the classes. Everyone loved being in the space full of Black women. It felt empowering. It was the vibes. It was the music. I can straight up say, like, just from reading the article, like I can imagine what that energy must be like. It's the same type of energy when you go to like a club with a lot of Black people in it, that it's just immediately a good vibe. And yeah, as they noted here, we had a good workout, but it was more of an experience than just a fitness class. It was all atmosphere. It was the vibes. It was the music. So very excited that these women started this business. Clinton, what do you think?
I think it's exciting. I think it's great. I think it's really warming to see any Black business start and succeed, but especially in new markets and new areas. I mean, let's be real. When you see a spin class, when you see a yoga class, when you see any sort of health-based or exercise-based organization, sure, you may see a few people of color here and there in the background, but it typically is not people of color. And you can ask why. I don't know. Does it have to do with marketing? Does it have to do with the music being played, the vibe? Or does it have to do with it didn't feel like a safe space? Now, I'm sure this is not it's called Black Girl Fitness. I'm sure this is not Black exclusive. I'm sure they would accept any member into the environment. But just looking at the images and the video I'd seen like last week, it seems like a place that, like you said, is a vibe, like similar to like a Black club party vibe, or, you know, a Black festival or a get together or a potluck. Like, it's just I feel the energy level in there is a different kind of energy. Not that other spin classes would not have the same kind of energy, but I'm really happy to see about this. I'd love to see more things like this pop up. I know mental health and well-being was a major theme for Black History Month here in 2022. And yeah, I think it's important for Black people to have safe spaces where they can come together and not just exercise, but make new friends, network, connect, build together, where they'll be seen and appreciated and they'll feel like it's a place where they belong. So really positive news coming out of Nova Scotia. I know there's lots of other bad news if you follow Nova Scotia news, but we wanted to touch on this to end off the show. I think it's great. What are your thoughts, Hillary, other than what you already said?
I'll add that they do have a line here saying that they're considering opening up the classes to other women of color and Black men in the future. So while, of course, I don't think that they're going to say that they're exclusionary, I do think it is like a heavily BIPOC person of color focus. And my last thought on this is when we had Alicia McManus on the show, she talked about wanting to be a lifestyle consultant, because she was sort of tired of going to retreats and seeing all these white people who do not know the struggle and do not have the same lived experiences. And I do think it's hard to go into health and wellness spaces, even sobriety groups, lifestyle groups. And I know that in the past, I have been concerned about feeling judged about the way that I look or am being perceived. Simply, Clinton's gone. Well, I will finish this episode by myself. I've been worried about how I'm being perceived simply as a woman of color. And I think that it's great to see those spaces open up where that won't happen as much anymore. This has been an episode of Black Manic. I'm all by myself for once. This has been Black Manic. As we said at the beginning, hit up our GoFundMe if you would like to contribute some cash money so that we can, you know, hire contributors and pay people and expand. Find Clinton Davis at Clinton Davis on Instagram. Brown Farm Boy if you want to learn about the Peacock Alexander. Oh, he's back. And Le Salon Diep. I was just doing the outro all by myself.
Amazing.
So I had just shouted out you, Brown
Thank you.
Farm Boy, Alexander the Peacock, and this on the Diep. And I did our GoFundMe speech. We're Black Manic on all socials, and I'm Cropberry.
And I'm Clinton.
Is there anything else?
No, this has been one doozy of an episode.
This was chaotic.
Bye.
Love you. Bye.